Good morning. Hello? No? Why no? Wait, why? I'm confused. I'm confused. What happened? The confusion is real. I need to do the dishes. Where are all my mugs? My shirt? Oh, thank you. Perfect. I actually love that. Genius. Genius. That's funny. That's funny. I like it. I like where your head's at. We're making coffee. Like you do. Oh, it's so soft. It's such an amazing sweatshirt. I love the material. I love it, love, 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 love it. Love it, love it, love it. You use the same collagen powder? Yes. It seems like it works because my hair and nails grow faster. It's good in smoothies if the smoothie doesn't have pineapple. Oh, what does it do if the smoothie has pineapple? I didn't know anything about that. Tell us more. What changes if the smoothie has pineapple? I don't taste it in my coffee. Pretty much at all. Actually, at all. It just makes it smell really weird. Oh, weird. While we're waiting for the coffee to go, do you guys want to see the flowers the secret fiance got me for our anniversary? Look at this. Look at this. Look at, sorry, our counter's a mess, but like, look at this. It's so pretty. Whoa, so gorgeous. Have you had a nice coffee? No, because it doesn't dissolve as well. They're gorgeous. In case anyone wants to know, I unfortunately ruined my herb garden, and so now I'm gonna have to start it over again because I broke it. So that's fun. Florists are really, they are really nice. And when he came in with that, I was like, oh my god, that's nicer than photos. Yeah, we got a lot of good herbs out of it, and then I pruned it badly, and now it won't grow anymore. So I have to start over with the herb garden. I didn't know you had an herb garden. They don't last long anyway. Oh, really? Is that true? So maybe it wasn't me? Tell me, Grace, did I not do it? Was it just that it was at it like had seen enough? It's one of those little, it's that little thing where it's that little pause and it's in water. Sorry. We had like the most prolific dill and basil, and we would use fresh dill and fresh basil in so many things. And then, oh, huh. Well, the more you know. Oh, okay. Well, this is making me feel better because I really thought that I had destroyed it. I thought that I was just bad at it. But maybe it's not me. Maybe they were just ready to say goodbye. Maybe we had just used enough of them, you know? Because we did get multiple runs out of them. How many months did you have them? Since Christmas. I got it for Christmas. It was a Christmas gift. And we had basil multiple times, dill multiple times, like giant batches of it, and we would use them in our cooking or whatever. And then this last time I was like, oh my gosh, it got so tall while we were gone, and I pruned it down, and then it never grew again. Wow, okay, well that's good to know. I did not know that, Grace. This makes me feel so much better. Thank you for making me feel better about my gardening skills, because I really thought that it was me that was the problem. Huh, okay. Well, that is really good to know. They're temporary plants. You get a whole bunch of seeds for cheap online too. We have more seeds. I just wasn't sure like what I did to like that one specifically. The book exchanger was so cute. It's uploading right now. Hold on. I overfilled my cup. Hold on. It should be uploading right now. Oh, actually, I was thinking that the book that he picked for me maybe will be our next book club read. Let me go grab it, actually, so I can show you guys. Hold on one second. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Thyme and cilantro can last longer, but things like basil and parsley are quickly dead. Interesting. It was basil and dill specifically. We would do things like this where we would like hang it and dry them out and then use it a bunch. And this is what's left of our dill. We had so much more than that, but that's what's left since the last pull of it. But you know, I felt good because I was making these plants thrive. Like, look at this plant has grown a new baby. Look at that giant stalk that just like sprouted like crazy. Dill dies annually. Good to know. Good to know. Okay, let me, okay, so we needed a new book coming up after Paris's memoir anyway, and everyone was saying, hey Julia, everyone was saying like, obviously we want to have something a little bit more lighthearted after the Paris one, and he picked this book for me, and it looks like it could be really funny and fun and cute, and it's short, and it'd be like an easy thing to do. That's fair, Grace. So it's called The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels. So I'm going to read the back to you guys and you can tell me what you think, but it seems like it's going to be like cute and, okay. So, prim and proper lady thief must save her aunt from a crazed pirate and his dangerously charming henchman in this fantastical historical romance. I mean, that sounds very cute, right? And it's not, I don't think it's a beep boop kind of romance. I think it's like the kind that I wrote. It does sound fun, but it also would just be like lighthearted and something to get us through, but I'll read the full blurb, hold on. Cecilia Basthingwaite is the ideal Victorian lady. She's also a thief. Like the other members of the Wisteria Society crime sorority, she flies around England drinking tea, blackmailing friends, and acquiring treasure by interesting means. Sure, she has a dark and traumatic past and an overbearing aunt, but all things considered, it's been a pleasant existence until the men show up. Ned Lightbourne is a sometime assassin who's smitten with Cecilia from the moment they meet. Unfortunately, that's what happens. That happens to be while he's under the direct orders to her. His employer, Captain Morvath, who possesses a Gothic abbey bristling with cannons and unbridled hate for this world, intends to rid England of all presumptuous women, starting with the Wisteria Society. Ned has plans of his own, but both men have made one grave mistake. Never underestimate a woman. When Morvath imperils the Wisteria Society, Cecilia forced to team up with her handsome would-be assassin to save the women who raised her, hopefully proving once and for all that she's as much of a scoundrel as the rest of them. Yeah, it does sound like something Connor would write. It's funny, right? It sounds like it would be like a good time. The thing on the front says delightfully bonkers. You know? Yeah. One of New York Times' most notable books of the year, delightfully bonkers, the most charming, clever, and laugh-out-loud funny book I've read all year. So, I don't know. It's called The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels, Anya. So this seems like a good, like, palate cleanser. You know what? It doesn't say a novel. Good point out, Jen. It doesn't say that, unless I'm missing it somewhere. Weird. Why doesn't it say that? I mean, it obviously is one. Well, on the back it says novel here. novel, but not on the cover. Interesting. Why only on the back? I saw another one that didn't say a novel because Amazon suggested it. Can't be a novel if it doesn't say it on the cover. I know. I mean, like, look, okay, I've got a couple of books, hey Amanda, within reach. So, like, obviously, oh, okay, so this is Paris's, and it says a memoir, obviously. This is Gabrielle Zevin's Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, and it does say a novel, right? This is Abby Jimenez, but it's the version from Book of the Month Club, but it doesn't say a novel. This Dreamland Billionaires thing that we decided not to do for book club does not say a novel. Very interesting, but like almost all the books on my regular bookshelf do say a novel. So my friend's book doesn't say a novel, but it's self-published. You'll have to tell us about that, Grace, so that we can support her. I saw your name and I thought, solidarity. It's been a momming kind of day. Oh my. All my sci-fi books say a novel. Yeah. Weird. It's all weird. Well, you know, I guess it's not a novel, but we're gonna read it anyway. Have to take Miles to the doctor. Oh no. Oh no. So we are pretty much about halfway done with Paris's memoir, and then we will move on to that. I think we're about to get out of the section that we've been in of her life, which is nice because it's been a rough road, but it is what it is. We will continue on our journey and, you know, see what happens. Yeah, thank goodness is right. This is chapter 12. According to Mom, my parents didn't send me to Provo sight unseen. She says they went there, toured the place, consulted with a therapist, and that there was never any talk of drugs, restraints, solitary confinement, none of that. Situated in a nice neighborhood near a golf course, Provo Canyon School appeared to be a conservative boarding school with pleasant grounds and well-maintained facilities. The tour didn't include the area where the kids screamed in straitjackets, slept on the floor, or went locked in solitary confinement. To me, it seems obvious that this place looked more like a prison or a mental institution than a school. The classrooms were like an afterthought, but I do believe that my parents never would have sent me there if they'd known what was happening behind closed doors. Hey, Shell. Remember, this was 1997. Wow, can you even believe that? 1997. That feels like a lifetime ago. A lifetime. If you were cutting edge, you had dial-up that crawled out of a 56K modem. The guys who invented Google were still screwing around in a friend's garage. Troubled teen facilities had hid behind skillful marketing and daytime TV endorsements. Thinking that they were literally fighting for their child's life, parents signed over custodial rights and medical powers of attorney and agreed not to report suspected child abuse. Traumatized graduates were threatened and shamed into silence, and the few who were strong enough to speak out had no way to connect or tell their stories until decades later. Even now, with all the survivor stories pouring out on the internet, we don't hear many stories from the damaged facilities. Some parents are defensive and refuse to believe that they could have been so wrong. Oh, damaged families, not facilities. Families, not facilities. Yeah, it's like jail. Some parents are consumed by shame and guilt, especially parents who subsequently lost a child to ending themselves. Mom and Dad had been through hell and back, and I'm sure I don't know a fraction what it was like or how it affected Nikki and my little brothers. The cover story to friends, relatives, and colleagues was that I was at boarding school in London. No one had any reason to doubt that. One of the heartbreaking aspects of all of this is how isolating it must have been for Mom and Dad. I don't know who, if anyone, knew their secret. They were so distraught and exhausted by the time they got a hold of me again that they weren't taking any chances, sorry.
In their minds, Provo was the safest place for me, a locked down facility. Kids went in and did not get out until they turned 18. The transporters brought me to Provo in handcuffs. We went up in an elevator to a floor with an infirmary. Somewhere down the hall, someone was screaming. A girl was huddled on a bare mattress in the hall. Orderlies fell in step with the escorts, taking me to a bare cinder block room where a pig-faced matron waited with a creepy expression, greedy, hungry. A nurse who looked small and undernourished as a ferret. Small and nervous as a ferret. Why did I say undernourished? Why can't I read? Said, face the mirror, take off your clothes. Provo intake was a step beyond what I had experienced at CEDU, Ascent, and Cascade. There was a full other exam. When I tried to resist, Pigface said, do it for the nurse or we'll get someone to restrain you. Nurse Ferret used speculum, and I'm not going to read the rest of that. I struggled to be still and try not to kick her in the face. Someone gave me faded sweats with the number 127 on them. From that moment on, no staff member ever called me by my name. To them, I was 127, a numbered unit on an assembly line. They gave me the usual book of nonsensical rules and left me in an isolated room to study it. The PCS rulebook outlined a point system for archiving various levels where you could get weekly phone privileges and attend classes. Mostly, it was an insanely long list of rules for absolutely everything. How to open a door, how to use the bathroom, how to stand up, to sit down, how to speak, how not to speak, how to move, how not to move, how to trudge like soldiers to the cafeteria and stand in line like robots for meds. Failing to follow the impossible to follow rules meant corporal punishment, chemical or physical restraints, isolation in OBS, short for observation, and a loss of privileges including visits and phone calls. You started out in the hole with like 500 IP investment points, and you were supposed to earn your way down to 0. If you slouched, coughed, shuffled your feet, or got sleepy, someone would smack you in the back of the head and say, Class 10, which meant 10 points got added. It took hours of sitting to earn a few points, and they could take it all away in a matter of seconds. I wasn't the only one sitting there with thousands of IPs. Failing to level up meant staying in investment, so that's where I was almost the whole time. I don't recall ever being allowed outside, 11 months without seeing the sky or breathing fresh air. I remember running around and around the gym, trying to help other girls keep up because if one of us stumbled or slowed down, we were all punished. I scrubbed floors and toilets, trying to earn enough IPs to level up so that I could call my parents or participate in group visits where boys were brought into the girl area and we were allowed to sit and talk at the table. Rebellious types slept on mattresses in the hall with the lights on it and the doors open. Staff came along once in a while to poke us to make sure we were breathing or just because, so I never really slept. I just drifted in and out of this weird twitchy state of semi-consciousness. My body was constantly on alert, wired to wake up at the instant that someone touched me. If I dozed off, I went into a shallow nightmare place haunted by the icky awareness of being watched. Most people who worked there seemed to get off on degrading children and seeing them. They seemed to get a creepy pleasure from hitting, shoving, terrifying, and humiliating us. The few staff members who tried to be decent didn't last, or their decency didn't last. I suppose they had to convince themselves that they had no choice. All of them, as far as I knew, were Mormons, and most of them had gone to Brigham Young University, which in their minds was a big deal and somehow made them super godly people. That's so effed up. People using religion, this holy thing, to manipulate and abuse people. Carter and I are both Catholic, officially, and I do believe in God, but church gives me anxiety. I'd rather just think about God my own way. Instead of the chaotic rap, Provo had group therapy, where we sat in a circle, dry-eyed and numb, and beat each other down with clumsy indifferences. We were all so sedated, and screaming and weeping was minimal, but the objective was the same. We were supposed to tear each other down and tell on one another, destroy any possibility of trust, strip away any shred of self-esteem. It didn't matter if it was truth or lies, you got rewarded for being cruel. Turning us against each other kept us isolated and vulnerable. It was scary to see another person get slapped, choked, or thrown down to the floor, but shock was followed by a shiver of relief because at least it was someone else this time. I cried a lot the first few weeks I was at Provo, but after a while I didn't have the energy. Being observed in the shower, the foul food, the forced labor, endless screaming down the hall, this was my life, so why fight it? I swallowed the pills and stared at the wall with my flawless mask of a runaway model. Whatever they were giving me made me feel like my head was disconnected from my body. That scared me, so I figured a way to fake swallow it. And when they made me open my mouth to show that I'd taken the pills, I tucked the capsule under my lower lip and waited for the opportunity to discreetly spit them out into a Kleenex. Yeah, screams into the void is right. That worked until some girl told on me. I saw her talking to Pigface, and Pigface glanced in my direction. The girl scuttled off into the corner with a guilty better you than me expression on her druggy face, and I knew I was screwed. 127, Pigface said, you think you're pretty smart, don't you? I want to know what those pills are, I said. I want to know who prescribed them and why. OBS, 12 hours. You can't force me to take 24 hours. F you. When I turned to walk away, she picked up the phone and said, dial 9 to investment. Within seconds, heavy footsteps pounded up the stairs and I started to panic because if a counselor dialed 9, you were immediately swarmed by orderlies. I've heard that a lot of them, these guys were red shirts recruited from the BYU football team. Some 250-pound running back would get injured and not be able to play, but he could still dominate a 98-pound kid with ease, and he needed money to replace his scholarship. If you resisted, one of them gave them a shot, essentially, is what I'm going to say. I don't know what was in it, but I saw kids go immediately slack when it hit them. Within moments of the injection, they melted like cotton candy in the rain. I tried to backpedal. No, it's okay. I'm sorry. I'm fine. I'll be good. I don't need OBS. I don't. Take 127 to OBS, Pigface told them. I'll be good. I don't need OBS. Don't make it worse, she said. I held up my hand and showed the orderlies I wasn't going to struggle. You don't have to do this. I swear. I'll be good. Close off, Pigface said. No. OBS was an oddly shaped cinder block chamber, not square, not circular, maybe a hexagon, the size of a public restroom stall. There was nothing in there except a bucket and a roll of toilet paper on the cement floor near a drain hole. In the light of the open door, I saw blood and feces smeared on the wall. When the door was slammed shut, only light filtered through a small window with a wire mesh inside the glass. It was freezing cold, and I read somewhere recently that they kept it between 55 and 60 degrees. It felt as raw and frigid as a meat locker. They took your undergarments when you were in OBS, so you couldn't use them to off yourself. Sometimes they gave the girls shorts and a tank top made of gauzy muslin, other times not. I don't remember having anything the first time. I paced, rubbing my arms, trying to warm up, staying close to the little light of the window. A girl in another room screamed and screamed for what seemed like a long time. She screamed herself hoarse and then fell into a rhythmic moaning that rose and fell like the ocean. I was reluctant to sit on the floor because it felt like ice under my feet, and the sickly crap smell lingered around the drain hole. When I couldn't pace anymore, I crouched down in the corner and put my arms around my folded knees, rubbing my legs. My hands and feet were numb. My core clenched into a hard knot, and I couldn't even cry. I just meeked like a baby bird who had fallen out of the nest, stunned and fearless. That's how to make someone want to end herself with her own bra. Shutting any kid into a cell like this is abuse. For a kid with ADHD, it's straight up torture, and I'm positive most of the kids in these places did have ADHD behavioral issues. Eventually, I was on the floor in a fetal position, my teeth chattering, my muscles screaming, my mind stuck in the endless loop of this is so effed up, this is so effed up. There was no doubt in my mind that I was going to die of hypothermia, and my soul would be trapped in this infested cinder block of a tomb forever. Time slipped out of joint like a dislocated shoulder. Silence. The darkness was so all-consuming, the only way I could stay alive was to find the source of light inside myself, and I don't know how else to explain it. I fell inward and found a beautiful world. I built myself a home. I created a beautiful life. Yeah, exactly, Teresa, exactly. That's what Secret Fiance and I were talking about this last night, about how there's more kids on the spectrum these days, and we were saying how we don't really think there's actually more kids on the spectrum. It's just more awareness. Most of them were institutionalized previously, you know. This wasn't a nebulous daydream. This was a mechanically specific vision. I plotted logistics, build a Rolodex of possible allies, inventoried assets, and weighed liabilities. I made conscious decisions about playlists, puppy care, the boning of a corset, the citrus note in a floral fragrance. The minutiae took me in. The details comforted me. This architectural love of music, roses, all good things was real to me as the Waldorf Astoria was to my great-grandfather. I didn't lose my grip on reality. I found it. My nightmare life at Provo Canyon School was based on lies and mind games. My beautiful world was organic and sustainable because it flowed from the real me. My real life had nothing to do with the twisted existence that these strangers manufactured for me. Here's what I believe. Your reality is totally up for grabs. If you don't create your own life, someone else will create something based on their own agenda to project onto you. Don't let them do it, my loves. Don't let them tell you that there's something is bigger than your everything. Think about the famous René Magritte painting that shows a pipe with the words, "Ce n'est pas une pipe." This is not a pipe. Back in 1929, people looked at it and said, I know what a pipe is, mate, and that's a pipe. But it isn't a pipe. It's a painting of a pipe. Magritte wasn't asking us to pretend the painting is a real pipe. He was daring us to accept that the smoking hot realness was art. In the name of this painting, by the way, is The Treachery of Images, which is a perfect description of social media, isn't it? I love creating and consuming content, but it's possible to lose yourself and forget that life and images of life are two very different things. Good morning. In 2017, I collaborated with a handful of brilliant people on The American Meme, a documentary that tries to unpack the difference between 15 minutes of Vine fame and a sustainable, meaningful career as a performance artist. Fun fact, the director, Burt Marcus, is the guy who kissed Nicole Richie on that 6th grade game of Spin the Bottle back in Chapter 2. See how the spirograph keeps going? Past, present, and future, always connecting. But getting back to The American Meme, some people say I opened the door on influencer culture the way that Pandora opened the forbidden box. I'm willing to own the OG influencer thing and not say that everything about it is awesome, but it has been democratizing both in artistic and economic spaces. It's liberating for a lot of people who couldn't get past old-style gatekeepers. Facts. Big facts, girl. Disrupting is scary for people who lack imagination and terrifying for people who hold on to the old school power structure. They don't like the idea that the future belongs to those of us who happen to be a little bit mad. I couldn't have put this into words when I was 17, and these days I'm too busy to sit around contemplating the nature of reality, but I have always, on some level, rolled with Marguerite's expanded definition of what real means. When I heard my father and grandfather talk about huge amounts of money involved in real estate, I knew that they weren't talking about physical truckloads of cash. I grew up understanding that intellectual property is a tangible asset just as much as a hotel is. The only difference is that real estate is defined by boundaries. A creative mind is a limitless empire. That's an amazing line. A creative mind is a limitless empire. Girl. That's a good one. Page 173. Someone should write that down because we need to put that on something. I mean, right? Put that on a sweatshirt. Pfft. A creative mind is a limitless empire. They should sell that. I'd wear it. When VR came along, crypto, NFTs, the metaverse, I jumped in without hesitation. I couldn't understand why so many people resisted. A few months before I got married, I was on The Tonight Show and Jimmy Fallon said, I didn't know how into NFTs you were. Do you guys know what that is? He asked the audience. Spattered applause indicated that a few people knew. Like 20 people know, Jimmy said. I barely know. Can you explain what an NFT is? It's a non-fungible token, I said, which basically is a digital contract on the blockchain so that you can sell anything from art to music to experiences to physical objects. And I suggested that he could sell a joke. Are you kidding? He said. I can't even do that to my audience tonight. He got a good laugh. So let's use that as an example. Jimmy Fallon offers a joke and receives laughter in return. It's a transaction, one thing exchanged for another. The audience wants to experience the feeling they get from laughing. Jimmy wants the audience to respond audience response that raises his stock as a comedian. So the joke and the laughter both have real value. I love me some cash, but value doesn't always mean money. Diamonds are expensive, but time is far more precious. Time is the most valuable natural resource that we have. Provo Canyon School robbed me of that precious commodity, my time, especially during those terrible hours in ops that took everything from me. Light, space, comfort, my clothes, my name. We weren't allowed to dance, sing, or even hum. I had no canvas on which to paint, no clay to sculpt, no way to write, sketch, sew, collage, nothing. But they couldn't take the core of who I am as a person, as a creative. My mind was my medium within myself. I had an unlimited supply of rhythm, color, style, no rules, no limitations, no laws of gravity or physics. I created a future world, a future self, a future life without boundaries. That's how I survived while so many other kids were just gone. Checked out, someone was always screaming in a straitjacket or confined on End Yourself watch. Some ex-footballer orderly was always staring at me with his disconnected stare. Every time I ended up in ops, I was terrified I'd come out like the zombie kids, lights on, nobody home, or like a soul-dead staffer who was too jaded to feel anything. I tried not to think about my family. I missed Nikki's voice and her common sense take on everything. I was afraid my little brothers wouldn't even remember me. When I thought about my parents, I felt so deeply angry that I hardly recognized myself. I don't know how it was possible to simultaneously love and hate someone as hard as I loved and hated my parents while I was huddled on that cement floor, freezing, starving, feeling chunks of my soul slip down the drain hole. I focused on my inner empire, who I would create, who I would become. My life after Provo would be everything. Instead of numbered sweats, I curated designer wardrobes and never wore the same outfit twice. Instead of bloodshot eyes and a bruised face, I'd have a lush fake eyelashes, a seamless spray tan, a touch of glitter on my cheekbones. Instead of shame, I would wrap myself in audacity, and I would make so much money and be so successful that no one could ever have control over me again. Screw trust, screw entitlement, screw inheritance. I would never take another dime from my parents. My belongings, my well-being, my body would belong to me and me alone. I kept my eyes on that small keyhole of light. February 17th, 1999. My 18th birthday. Legally, I'd be an adult. More important, I'd be free. Mom says I was at Provo Canyon School for 11 months, spring 1998 until January 1999. I know that there was Christmas because my family was allowed to visit and my father shot some awkward home videos. Here's Starry's room, he says on the grainy film, working hard to sound like everything's okay. My little brother darts past the camera, bored, silly, the only one honest enough to say anything because he just wants to get the hell out of there. Nikki stands awkwardly in the cramped space between the beds, towering over me with chunky heels, supermodel posture. It's shocking to see us side by side. She's the picture of a vibrant, well-loved teen, the healthy smile of a California girl, the healthy confidence of a native New Yorker. I look like a goldfish out of its bowl, beaten down, emaciated, shy, with dishwater brown hair and a forced fake smile. Baggy jeans and an Abercrombie shirt hang on my body, clothes bought for someone else that my family used to know. My mom looks pinched and sad. She touches a plush toy bunny that she'd sent me the previous Easter, not understanding why this was the first time that I was seeing it. The bed she was sitting on had been hastily jammed in next to a set of bunk beds so my parents wouldn't know that I usually slept on a mattress in the hallway. Pigface lingers in the shadows outside the open door. This was just a couple of months before my 18th birthday, but I was so desperate to leave this place that a matter of weeks felt like an eternity. As my parents were set to go, I put my arms around my father and whispered in his ear, "Dad, please get me out of here. You don't know what..." "Starry, you need to finish what you started." I leaned in close so that Pigface couldn't hear me. "Get me out. If you don't believe me when I tell you that this place is effed up, believe me when I say that I will leave here 5 seconds after I turn 18, go to the Wall Street Journal and tell them everything. Everything. And I'm not kidding." He drew back, looking a little stunned. And then he looked me square in the face and said, "Merry Christmas, Star." He hurried down the hall to catch up with Mom, who had Baron on one head and Conrad on the other. Nikki glanced over her shoulder, and it bothered me that I couldn't tell what she was thinking. I think it was a couple weeks later when Pigface told me I was going home. She didn't look me in the eye. She didn't say good luck or go screw yourself. She just walked away. In the anticlimactic, couldn't care less way a bully would walk away after kicking down your sandcastle. My parents came and got me a few weeks before my 18th birthday, and we all left together as if everything was hunky-dory. We didn't talk about why I was getting out early, and I didn't care. It was one of the happiest moments of my life. It killed us to leave you there, Mom says now, but we kept thinking and kept saying to each other, we just have a few months before she turns 18, and after that, there's nothing we can do to save her. Mom says that they heard the rumors about stuff that went on at the other emotional growth boarding schools, but they assumed that sort of horror show was only at the low-rent places. They were paying top dollar, so they assumed it would be fine. Had we known, Mom says, Dad and I would have been there in a second. And I do believe her, but it doesn't change what happened. I do believe her, and I hope that that brings them some comfort. 20 years later, the truth about Provo and CEDU's sister school began to seep out on the internet. Brave survivors began to tell their stories. It took me a long time to find the courage to open up about it, but when I added my voice to the growing survivor community, it was difficult for my parents to hear. They've taken a lot of flack for their decision to send me to CEDU and Provo. Industry gossip, Twitter, social media, some of it's been brutal. There were times that my mom felt overwhelmed by it, and she couldn't get out of bed. So it's important for me to acknowledge here that my parents also deserve some credit for my survival. Rick and Kathy Hilton didn't raise a fragile little Fabergé egg rich girl. They raised a badass kid who kept fighting and climbing and running. We all actually laugh about that a little. You were like Houdini, Mom says. Anywhere we put you, they'd call and say, she's gone. And off we'd go again. My stubborn streak, my staying power, my compulsive work ethic, my creative vision, that was in my bone marrow. I inherited determination and a love of life from my mom and dad. They gifted me with a spine and the idea that I was entitled to good things, and I refused to accept that I was a worthless piece of garbage, even when a grown man twice my size wrapped his hand around my neck and squeezed my windpipe, screaming in my face, "You are a worthless piece of garbage." I knew it wasn't true. I knew I was a Hilton. Wild. Let's hope for a little bit better, right? Let's read a little bit on and see. Yeah, she is. She's extremely powerful. Part 3's quote says, I'm a girl from a good family who was very well brought up. One day I turned my back on it all and became a bohemian. Bridget Bardot. How long do we think chapter 13 is? Does anyone know what time it is? It's kind of a long chapter. 9:13. Well, let's try. Let's see how much we can get through. Chapter 13. The year 1998 was basically a giant hole in my life. No music, no TV, no clue about pivotal changes in communication and technology or anything else going on in the world. In January 1999, I was released from Provo Canyon School and Britney Spears dropped her new album, Baby One More Time. That's a crazy, like, you know when some people say that Martin Luther King and Anne Frank were born in the same year and your brain just like explodes because that doesn't even feel possible, right? Like we know it like you can look at a timeline and you can see that is fact, but like in your brain you're like, huh? Because it doesn't even seem possible. She's leaving this awful hole of a place and Britney Spears is making Baby One More Time. Like that's when this was happening. We all had that album, we all listened, and she, previous to that, couldn't listen to any music. Like right before that, I was listening to the Grease soundtrack and the Romeo and Juliet soundtrack, and she couldn't listen to any music at all. You know what I mean? Like, that's terrible. Ugh. I couldn't get enough. The rebellious energy, the new way of mixing and editing music. She wears the music like a catsuit on that album, and I was instantly dying to know, how do they do that? The shift in technology maybe wasn't so noticeable for some people, but I had been music deprived for almost the past 2 years. The video on the title track, Baby One More Time, starts out with Britney sitting in class, flicking her pencil and bouncing her foot as the agonized sound clicks by, and then the bell rings, and she's free. That was so me. That impatient schoolgirl dying to be free, and then she is, and she transforms and becomes herself. And I love the idea that a girl could own her sensual self like that and just enjoy it without shame or fear. But then there's the timeline that keeps repeating, my loneliness is killing me. Because a girl who doesn't conform, a girl who's disobedient, a bold girl who shows her strength and sexuality is a girl on her own, no matter how many boys dangle from her charm bracelet. For 2 years, I was starved for music, art, for food, for everything that makes life beautiful or bearable, but mostly I was starved for love. From the night I climbed out the window to kiss the teacher, I'm not gonna say, she uses the P word, but that teacher, I felt cut off from my family. That was the most brutal part of everything that I'd been through. It wasn't the physical miles that separated us, it was the layer upon layer of shame, lies, and denial. To be a good graduate, you're supposed to say that CEDU and Provo saved your life. They programmed us to believe that if you talked shit about the school would talk even worse shit about you, to your family, to potential employers, in my case, to the tabloids. It was a powerful muzzle. Most survivors, including me, just wanted to get on with our lives and never think about those places again. I recently asked another survivor, how did you cope with the things that first year after Provo? And she said, I drank until I was blind. Self-medication is common among survivors, so is self-harm. It makes total sense. It takes a lot of effort to fake it in a world where you no longer recognize, and advanced imaging shows that childhood trauma affects the brain. The nucleus accumbens, the pleasure center where addiction clicks in, the prefrontal cortex where impulse control happens, or doesn't happen. The amygdala, why can't I pronounce things? Amygdala, where fear lives. Nikki was the bright yellow pool noodle who kept me from drowning my first few months of freedom. While I was away, she had evolved past that knobby-kneed, pony-legged stage tall girls always go through during junior high. At 15, she scored a sweet internship at a major fashion magazine and was dreaming of designing her own empire. Elegance radiated from her skin, her hands, her feet, the set of her chin, everything about her. She had dad's slender height and mom's flawless social instincts. Nikki always knew the right thing to do, and she did it, but not in a prissy or fake way. She knew how to pull it off. She has her wild creative side, but her overall vibe was wise, keep it classy virtue with an edge of cool intelligence, like Audrey Hepburn in Funny Face. I actually met Nikki and her family. They came to Slumu once, and I was struck by how she doesn't even feel like a real person. Paris is right. She just is effortless as she floats through things. She brought her kids there, and they did a private tour with me, and they were so well behaved compared to all the other rich kids who came through there. It's almost wild. We had a lot of celebrity kids come through Slumu, and Nikki's kids were extremely well behaved. And her husband was so nice, and they were all just so kind. They were really nice people. They didn't act like a lot of the people who came through there. Nikki grew up with normalcy and nurturing. She thrived in the healthy school environment at Sacred Heart. She learned from the exposure to ratified social atmospheres of New York City and slept in a quiet room where she felt loved and protected. I was never jealous of my sister, but I was envious. While I was locked up, Nikki and I sort of switched places. She moved forward while I stood still, or I was dragged backwards. When I came out of Provo, she was fiercely protective of me, and I looked up to her as if she became the big sister and I was the little sis, always trying to catch up. And I still kind of feel that way today. I wasn't surprised to find that Nikki and my little brothers, my aunts and uncles, my grandparents, my family friends, or even Wendy White, who always knew everything, had no clue where I really was between the summer of 1997 and 1999. The whole thing was an ugly little secret shared by Mom, Dad, and me. We didn't discuss it. It was like the previous 17 months never happened. My mom had a whole elaborate story that I heard in bits and pieces when friends and hairdressers and anyone else wondered why I disappeared so completely and reappeared so suddenly. Somebody called for an interview to interview her for a magazine article, and when they wouldn't accept vague responses, she defaulted to prank call mode. Well, Paris and Nikki interviewed at Sacred Heart, and Nikki's about to graduate. It's been a wonderful experience for her, but Paris said, Mom, no way am I going to an all-girls school. So she went to a performing arts high school, and she had a 3.8 GPA. She's very smart. But you know how she is with serious ballerinas, and she went away to Dwight and just didn't bond with anyone there. Teachers, students, it was just so... She frowned, gripping onto the phone in her fist. Run away? Of course she didn't run away. That's just one of those crazy... No. That was a stalker. Someone was stalking her. The stalker part was true. That just really did happen. It's the most frightening thing I've ever been through. Here's this attractive girl being followed, being stalked. We're getting bizarre things in the mail. We did everything to protect her. It was her senior year, so she graduated with homeschooling in London. So now, in addition to the Waldorf security, we have private security tailing them, watching them every move they make. We'll see everything. Who, what, where, when they go. I took cues from my mom and stuck to the story. I was happy to cast her and dad as vigilant, fully protective parents. That's who they wanted to be. That's who they are. The parents who would go to the ends of the earth for their children. Only in my case, they went to the wrong end. I no longer knew how to be myself around them. I was walking on eggshells trying to say what I thought they wanted to hear. Pigface had warned me that even after I got out of Provo, my parents would commit me to a mental hospital anytime they wanted. Could commit me to a mental hospital anytime they wanted. I did really believe that at the time, but years later, I saw what happened to Brittany and how her dad legally took control of her personal and professional life, and it shook me. My parents did their best to bring me back into the family dynamic, but there are some lessons you can't unlearn. Underscoring everything they did to show me how much they love me, there was this idea being drilled into me by my keepers at CEDU, Ascent, and Provo. They sent you away because they can't stand you. You're an embarrassment to everyone that you love. The message played on steady repeat like the jagged edge of a jigsaw, etching deeper grooves into me. In my mind, love was conditional and couldn't be trusted. Love was something I didn't deserve, but could manipulate if I kept it at a safe distance. That's sad. My little brothers were so funny and sweet. Baron was 10 now and deliriously happy to see me. He just wanted to hang with me at the park. He didn't know how many other adult-ish people were happy to go on the swings and slides and teeter-totters with him. Conrad was 5 and full of questions about bugs and animals, space, and science. They were both bright and adorable, and I loved them to the moon and back. But there was a blank space in those relationships, and it would take a long time for us to fill it in. In any family where there's a big age difference between the oldest and the youngest, it's almost like 2 families. But this was more than that. Conrad had no memory of the time before I went to live with Graham Cracker. Between Palm Springs and CEDU, I was an agent of chaos and daily conflict with my parents. Now that I was back, the tension was like a persistent ringing in my ears. I didn't want to be separated from my family again, but the minute that I set foot in my family's apartment at the Waldorf, I knew that I couldn't live there. Eesh. I mean, I don't blame her. Harsh. Way harsh. Whew. All right. I am off to start my work day. I will probably be on to make Mother Goose later. That sounds funny after everything we just read. Maybe we'll make Giles, whatever. And get, yes. What's up, Brittany? Yeah, I have it here. I haven't got back to your DM yet. I'm going through all the DMs again, but I have your order here. So I will mail it out as soon as I get to your DM to confirm which things. I haven't mailed anything yet, so nothing's missing. Cindy, she says she's going back today to check again. I'll let you know as soon as she goes there. But she didn't have a chance to go yesterday because all her kids had swim lessons and stuff like that yesterday, so she did not get to go to the mailbox yesterday, but she is going today. So we'll see what's there, and if not, we'll submit a claim with them if there's no little ticket in our box, because there was nothing when she went before. Yes, everything's good. Just trying to get through all the DMs in order. Cool. All right, see y'all later. Morning, Mina.